Today's episode is brought to us by On the Clock. On the Clock is an online time clock software that provides small businesses with a solution to track employee hours worked while making the payroll process simple and efficient for all accountants, and they've been around since 2004. On the Clock tracks time off, job and project hours, overtime, and payroll hours that all can be sent over to QuickBooks, Gusto, Thomson Reuters, or map them over to any payroll provider of your choice. This gets rid of Excel files, emails, and faxes. You will also have the option to be listed as a trusted pro on their marketplace page, giving you visibility to their 10,000 active users, to you and your services. Sign up today for a free account over at ontheclock.com to expand your business and start saving some time. Once again, ontheclock.com. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast, where all accountants come to learn all the ways to grow your firm. And when you're in doubt, I am here to help you out. So if you're ready to learn and ready to grow your firm, then you're in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. I cover topics from networking, pricing, finding your ideal clients, increasing cash flow, getting off a hamster wheel is what we're talking about today, setting boundaries, and so much more, so you can really stop giving away your time for free and start getting paid your worth and being appreciated by your clients. So you will learn tips and strategies, and you'll hear personal interviews that I do with successful accounting professionals in the field. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm of your dreams full of abundance. But before we welcome our special guest, if you have ever felt like you're giving away way too much information for free or prospects, and you feel like you don't have any control over who you work with or how much you can charge, then you're probably like many accountants who feel like they've never really had the business or freedom they've always dreamed of. And I have a solution for you. You can join my Abundant Accountant Masterclass to really learn and feel confident positioning yourself as an expert, learn how to get consistent, high-quality referrals, and also start getting paid what you're worth, no matter how much your fees are or what you think your clients could maybe afford. So this masterclass is for you if you really want to stop giving away your valuable time and knowledge, aka your inventory, away for free, and identify really consistent income streams so you can have the business you've always wanted. If you want to register for the Abundant Accountant Masterclass, just head on over to theabundantaccountant.com and register. It's complimentary, and I look forward to seeing you in the masterclass. Today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is Paul Davis. He is an insightful personal advisor to business owners, CEOs, and celebrities internationally, helping them get off the hamster wheel and really get your mojo back. He's an entrepreneur, an award-winning business coach, speaker, and he's the host of the Executive Code. He was actually trained as an accountant, so he is an accountant as well, from Ireland, has an awesome accent. So let's welcome Paul to the show.
Hi, Michelle. How are you doing? Very good. Well, delighted to be here again.
Well, thank you so much for being here again for our part 2 episode. For all of you that maybe haven't heard part 1, you'll definitely want to go download or listen, and subscribe while you're at it. Paul's part 1 episode that we did. And for those that might have not listened to part 1 yet, Paul, can you share with everyone what it is that you do? Just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I suppose there's, although there's mostly facets to me, but there's two main sides. I suppose on the one side, I work with a lot of accountants and other people in professional services. And primarily what I do is I help them to get more clients, increase their fees, and manage their time more effectively. And then on the other side of my business, which is people that feel that they're on the hamster wheel and lacking a sense of purpose or meaning in their life, what I do is I actually identify what that purpose is for them, what's unique to them, and get them off that hamster wheel and back into life again.
I love it. I love it. Identify your purpose, because I know a lot of listeners might feel like they're on a hamster wheel. So that's something I hear quite often from a lot of accountants. But So in part 2 today, we are going to talk a lot about the competence journey. So if you haven't listened to part 1, it's okay. You don't have to have that one in order to listen to this one. And we're also going to talk about trust with clients and what that means in order to, increase your revenues, increase your fees. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So maybe grab your yellow notepad and grab a pen, because that'll be really supportive for you today. So thank you again, Paul, for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. I think we could even probably do a part 3 because I love talking to you. I mean, I do love the accent, but just everything you say, it reiterates things we've talked about here or things that I share. And you have so many unique analogies and perspectives. So again, thank you for contributing and being a part of the show.
Yeah, any way I can help at all.
So a lot of accountants kind of fall off the wagon or drop off when it comes to the competence journey, like we were talking about before we even started today's show. Can you share a little bit about the definition of the competence journey? And then we'll get into where some of you might be like, yep, that's me. That's where I fell off the wagon.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So let me just recall very quickly what the 3 pillars of competence are. And competence is skills, knowledge, and experience. So they're the 3 pillars. So anything that you're going to do, primarily anything that you're going to do new, what you'll be looking to try and develop are each one of those pillars: your skills, your knowledge, and your experience. Now, what tends to happen for a lot of people is they start that journey and they have a high level of enthusiasm, or what I refer to as commitment, in wanting to complete a particular task. But at some point, there is a point in that particular journey, I call it the competence journey, that they actually fall off, as you say, Michelle, fall off the wagon. So let me bring it back. And the easiest way of doing this, so I'm actually glad you asked the listeners to take out their yellow pad and start writing, because there's going to be a lot of notes on this one. And Michelle, if you've got a pad in front of you, I would encourage you to write these notes as well. Because the reason being, I'm going to ask you to draw a square, a big, huge square. And I want you to break down that square. So if you can imagine a bit like a window. So you've got the upper left quadrant, you've got the lower left quadrant, you've got then the upper right quadrant and the lower right quadrant. So in effect, you've got square, but it's broken down into 4 squares within the square, if you follow what I mean.
Got it. Yep.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. So on one side, so accountants will get this because we love graphs and we love data. So if you can imagine that those 4 squares are going to form part of a graph, on the left-hand side, as what we refer to as the y-axis, I want you to put down commitment. And then on the lower axis, which is typically the y-axis as we refer to, we put down competence. So I want you to bring it back. And I use this analogy for a lot of my clients that I work with, because everybody will connect with it. Now, this applies to every single thing that an individual will start new, meaning there's a new piece of legislation that they need to find out about, or there's a new project that they need to complete, or there's a new piece of software that they need to get their head around, or literally anything that they're going to do new and they're going to end up repeating in their life. All of them will go through this journey. It's just part of human nature. But if we don't know the journey, some of us will fall out of it. But if we realize what the journey is, well, then we'll push past the barrier and move forward on it. So how it starts off with, so let me use the analogy. Do you remember when you were first learning how to drive a car, Michelle?
Yes, I was driving my grandfather's minivan is how I learned.
Perfect. And it was probably in your teenager years.
Yes, I was, I think 14 or 15.
Excellent. So that's mostly around the time that most people start learning how to drive. And normally as a teenager as well, we're hugely enthusiastic about what it is that we want to do, meaning that we want to learn how to drive that car, because that car means absolute freedom to us.
Heck yeah. Autonomy and freedom. I don't have to get driven anywhere. I mean, Paul, don't get me wrong. I do love a chauffeur. Like,
Exactly.
Like if Uber was just something that made sense all the time and they actually showed up quickly, then that's definitely my way to go now.
Exactly. Well, there's a phrase I heard, Michelle, you love this one, is, the older we get, it's better to always be on the back of the car, but the front of the plane.
Yes, exactly.
That's living.
Always. In the back of the car, not driving, being driven, but in the front of the plane so you can get off quickly. First class, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So on the left-hand side, so when you remember back to that age and you literally want to learn how to drive that car, your commitment was at its highest. Your desire to learn how to drive that car was literally at its peak. You were what I refer to as the enthusiast. In that upper left quadrant, if you put in the word enthusiast, that's what you are, because you're high in commitment, but you absolutely have no idea how to drive that car. You have an idea. You have some aspect to it. Okay, so there's something to do with turning the wheel. There's something to do with, the clutch and the accelerator and all this kind of stuff. But you really don't know what you don't know. So that's what I refer to as enthusiasm. Huge amount of commitment, but we've no idea what we're going to do. But then as we get a few lessons, so whether it be with one of your parents or your grandparents or somebody more professional, we get to know what it is that we don't know. We get to realize, there's a lot more to driving this car than we ever even imagined. So back in my day, it was a case of, oh my God, we have to do this thing called a hill start. So you got to literally stop in the middle of a hill and try and get this car literally from a standstill right up to the top of the hill.
A manual car, right? Like not automatic?
A manual car.
Yeah.
Not automatic. No, there were no automatics back in our day. So then there's all these things about, 3-point turns. And, there's always the point whereby you're stopped at the traffic lights. And, lo and behold, you definitely don't want any of your friends around. But the lights go green and you try and go, but then the car stalls.
Yeah, or it goes down the hill backwards.
Yeah, exactly. So now what happens is you now realize what it is that you don't know, and you don't feel as expert as you once felt when you started off. So that commitment level drops way, way down. And you're now in what I call the phase of being the doubter. And this is where the critical line starts to appear. So there are moments in that journey whereby you're doing those driving lessons, but you start to doubt yourself. You start to realize, oh my God, I don't know as much as I really should know, and I'm never going to get to drive this car. I'm never going to crack this expertise of what it takes to actually drive a car. And for some people, they do actually give up. And that's the critical line. In life, it happens exactly the same point. So we start something new, we're hugely enthusiastic, and we get to a particular point in the journey when we actually realize, do you know what? I actually don't know how to finish this, or don't know how to push past this, and whatever. Our commitment wanes way, way low. Even though our competence is increasing, we're still not there. And for some people, when they start something new, an easy example is when you start to learn a new musical instrument, or you start to learn a new piece of software or whatever. You get to a point whereby you actually say to yourself, I'm not going to be able for this. Some people fall out of college because they don't feel that they can finish the rest of the course. So it shows up in every single aspect of life. And what I call the lower left quadrant is the doubter, because that's when that shows up. But if we know what the competence journey is, and all we need to do is push past that critical line and keep learning, developing those skills, that knowledge and that experience, and keep going and developing our competence from that point of view, now we move into the other quadrant, which is the bottom right-hand quadrant. Now, in that quadrant, our competence is at a much, much higher level. In some respects, it's probably, for some people, at the highest level it's ever going to get to. But here's what happens as well. We get to a point whereby you're really, really good at learning how to drive that car. You're now at the point of being able to drive the car, but you're still somewhat thinking about all the aspects that has to be done. So you're checking your mirrors, you're checking your gear changes and all that kind of sort of things. But there does become a point in our life whereby, in our learning literally how to drive that car, there does become the point whereby you can drive that car now. And so if you left your home, for example, Michelle, and you got to your office, or you were going to the supermarket, or whatever it might be, whatever journey that you were taking today, you never had one iota of a thought about what it is that you were doing in driving that car. We get to the point of being on autopilot. So we can drive the car without even thinking about driving a car. So if you think of all the things that you naturally do now, that you're on autopilot, so all the accountants that are listening to this particular podcast, all the work that they do, the vast majority of it will do it on autopilot. That's where you get to the point of actually it's on autopilot, it's comfortable, your competence level is at a decent enough high level, your commitment is also at an okay level. meaning it's halfway between the very, very highest and the lowest level. So what I refer to in that bottom left-hand quadrant, the bottom right-hand quadrant, what actually happens is now you're the pacifist. You're now just sailing through life. You're the pacifist. You're just going through life. You're just on autopilot. You're just accepting what it is. So the difference in being a leader, which is the upper right-hand quadrant, their leaders are the ones that actually develop and look at their level of commitment, and they look at the level of competence, and they strive for much more. They strive for better. They strive for greater. So for people that are in business, for the ones that want to be the leader, they're the ones that are actually making a difference, both within their business and also with the clients that they're working with. If you take it from, let's go back to the driving analogy, you take it back to that, there is expert driving lessons that you can take. There's advanced driving lessons that you can take. So therefore you can drive in snow, you can drive in ice, you can learn how to drive out of very, very awkward, difficult situations, which is like what the CIA or the FBI will actually learn, to drive their person that they're responsible for out of a very, very difficult situation very, very quickly. They're much more advanced driving lessons, but the vast majority of people don't do them. And that's the difference between a leader and being a pacifist.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, no, I'm the leader. I'm doing all these extra classes. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's, let me put it this way. This is where I bounce over to the other side of my business, where people feel like they're on the hamster wheel and they feel like, well, sure, what's the point? That's because their commitment has gone to such a low level. They're just being a pacifist in life. They're just being on that hamster wheel. Life is happening to them as opposed to them instructing which way they want to bring their life. So there's a whole way of how we get to look at that commitment level and see what's going on and break down the commitment, because there's 3 pillars that I have in relation to commitment in order to actually divide that out.
Okay, Paul, I got a question, okay? Because I'm going to just put my accountant hat on, because I have a bunch of leaders in my 8-week sales mastery training that are breaking through that barrier. They're not the, you're calling it passivist, right? Passivist? Yeah. Okay.
Pacifist, yeah.
Pacifist.
It's my Irish accent.
I know. It's definitely a new word for me, so I'm very excited about my new word. But for those that might be like, I can't get off this hamster wheel, I've been doing the same thing. And I was just on the phone with a woman today. I procrastinated so long, and she almost wanted to procrastinate again. And I reminded her of what she said in her email. And I'm just like, what is the switch like in the brain, right? How does someone say, okay, the pacifist is not me anymore. I got to break through the barrier, but in 2020, there's this low grade depression that everyone has. You don't even realize, how do they get off the hamster wheel? For an accountant listening, to go to extra driving classes to become the expert tax person or tax resolution and sign up for those extra classes, what I call is getting specialized knowledge, by the way. How do they make that jump? How does the mind go, okay, I'm done with being a pacifist. I've been on autopilot too long. Next, like I'm going to make because for me, it just happens. Like I always do one extra growth class every year. So this year I did influence ecology. Last year I did mastery and transformational leadership. After that, about 2 weeks ago, I started volunteering for the suicide hotline. So I'm always doing what you're talking about, but I just make it a commitment that every year it's just one class. So I don't get on the hamster wheel because I think once I'm on it, I'd be stuck. So how would someone get off of it?
Okay, so there's an awful lot to answer just in one that simple question.
I know. We'll keep it simple because, Paul, you want to do a part 3? You want to do I could sit here and talk to Paul forever. And for you guys listening, I bet you too, You're like, these analogies are so good. I mean, driving a car. I also have a next question for you too, because now I have a Tesla and it has autopilot. And it drives me from my house to LA. I can email and text while I'm driving now safely. The car is actually more safe in autopilot than it is in human mode. Go figure.
Yeah. Amazing. Let me answer it for you. I'll give you a little bit of, because it would be such a long answer, but my straight reaction is that they've no reason, meaning they've no reason to get off the hamster wheel. They're on the hamster wheel, but they don't have a reason to push themselves forward.
Right. There's no purpose, right?
Exactly. That's where it feeds into purpose. Now, let me drill it down a little bit more for you. There are internal drivers, what I call internal priorities to an individual. Every single individual has a set of internal priorities, internal drivers. So just think of them as being it's your internal dynamo, okay? And if you don't understand, I don't know whether dynamo is a common term, but a dynamo is literally, that's your engine inside. It's what literally drives your internal engine. So everybody has a unique set of internal drivers. Most people don't know what they are. Now, you're naturally doing things that are in line with your internal drivers. What happens for most people when they get into business or they start a career is they typically follow either what their parents tell them to do, or what they should do, or what they have to do. They fall into their career or they fall into their business in some shape or form. They look around when they're in college and they kind of say, okay, what should I do, or what will I do in my life, and all that kinds of things. So they pick the first course, or they become the accountant, or they become the lawyer, or whatever it might be, whatever profession they decide to do. But it's not necessarily in line with what their internal drivers are. So what happens then later on in life is they literally get to that point from a commitment perspective. Their desire for what it is that they're doing literally just collapses. Their passion, their love for what it is that they do is gone. And therefore they don't have the motivation, the drive to actually strive forward. And that's what happens to people. So a lot of people, they'll come to me from the perspective of, I don't have any meaning in my life. I've no fulfillment. The work that I'm doing, what am I doing it for? There's no purpose of it. What on earth am I doing? All I'm doing is just on this hamster wheel, and all I'm doing is just paying bills. So that's typically the conversation that some of my clients will come to me for. And I'll identify what their drivers are. I'll identify what their purpose is. I'll tell them exactly what their mission is and what they should be doing in their life.
Are you a psychic? How do you know? You just meet that.
You've tapped into something that we okay. So did I tell you, or maybe you didn't know, which was I was born in Ireland. I was born the seventh son of a seventh of a seventh.
You what?
I was born the seventh son. Of a seventh child. 3 generations, I was the seventh.
Wow.
So let me explain that, because in America that's not hugely known. In Ireland, there's a huge amount of folklore.
777.
So
I think all of the accountants might be calling you so you can go tell them their meaning
their purpose.
And their purpose so they can have fulfillment. I think we have the accountant psychic here now. Okay, let's hear about this.
I tend not to use the word psychic, but I do use the word intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So when I'm working with clients, I'll get their purpose, their vision, their mission, the reason why they're to do it, and all the impact they're supposed to make. I'll get that in knowings and imagery, and that's how I'm able to guide my clients to massive levels of success. But that's just one aspect of me. But so that's how I know so much about purpose and what literally drives an individual. So a short answer to your question, which is for people that feel like they're on the hamster wheel, that's exactly the reason being. They don't have a reason. They don't have a purpose. They're just doing the work because that's what they learned how to do. Whereas you're doing, Michelle, you yourself are doing things that are obviously probably in line, if I was to do work with you, to identify what are your internal drivers, what are your internal priorities. You're probably intuitively or naturally doing work that's in line with those, and that's why you're so driven. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between literally somebody that's being a pacifist to being somebody that's a leader.
Wow. Okay. So what's the 777?
Okay. So in Irish mythology, the seventh son was reported to have healing capabilities. And there's different tests that you would do as a seventh son of a seventh. So as a child, I used to do actually a lot of healing. So a lot of people would come to the house and I'd be healing them from cancer, rheumatism, to migraines, to, no end of different ailments. And they would literally go away healed. I mean, completely and utterly healed. But as a teenager, I literally moved away from all that because it's not cool. It's not something you do as a teenager. But inherent within myself was, as I was meeting people, and I'd be hugely empathic. So I'd know not what they would say, but I'd know deeply at a soul level what they were feeling. So I know if somebody was absolutely unhappy at a soul level, but how it transpired in business. So I never told anybody what I could do, but how it transpired in business was that I'd go into a business. I'd literally just walk into the business. I'd know what would need to be done with the business, and I use the term I'd pivot that business, meaning I'd turn the direction of the purpose. I'd turn the direction of the business very, very slightly. And then all of a sudden, literally, it was like as if the business was completely aligned with the individuals, meaning the business owners within the business.
Yeah.
And their business literally just flourished very, very easily without them doing a hell of a lot of work. So I've done it, for want of a better word, I've done it as like covertly, because it's not something, let me put it this way, when you go to a business consultant, it's not something that you would expect to hear from a business consultant.
No, absolutely not. Everyone's probably thinking, wow, I want to go talk to the psychic, the palm reader, the card reader, the intuitive. But that's super cool that you do this for accountants,
Well, what I've had to do over the years is, because I wasn't able to tell people that's what I do intuitively, I've had to find methodologies. And hence the reason why I've searched and researched for many, many years, but trying to find and develop methodologies, which is what I call now the executive code, of how can I find the evidence in people's lives so that they don't feel that I'm making it up. Because you can go to an intuitive and he can tell you X, Y, and Z. But if you don't really believe it, well, then there's no benefit there. But what I've now developed over the years is literally I can find the evidence for people. So therefore I match the evidence that they find to what it is that I already have in their vision. And then they know, okay, so this and the stories I could tell you are just phenomenal, but it's interesting, it's cool.
I'm booking an appointment for myself and my boyfriend. We're booking an appointment. And for everyone listening, you all should book an appointment too. Paul, how do they book an appointment with you, though, if they really want to do an executive code analysis?
Well, yeah, I suppose my website at the minute, which is davisbusinessconsultants.com, that has a lot of different, talks about the different services I have. I'm actually in the process of building a brand new website, which is just under my own name. And there's a service that I'm going to be putting on that, which I call it the flight plan, because I love flying. I've literally probably flown every single type of aircraft. Well, not every single type, but I've flown from helicopters to small jets to hot air balloons, you name it. I just love flight. So hence the reason why I'm called the flight plan.
Very cool. Are you a pilot?
I've learned how to. I don't do commercial pilot, but I have learned how to fly a plane. Yeah.
And a helicopter.
And I've flown a helicopter as well. Yeah.
You have your pilot's license.
I don't have a license.
Oh,
I never took to the level, because I literally just, I want to experience the different types of flying. So I've done a glider. I've jumped out of a plane twice. There's a whole load of different things that I've done from it that are flight related, but I've no desire actually to fly, to learn how to fly a plane and become a pilot. Let's put it that way.
It's so cool. Yeah. My brother's a pilot. So that's why I was asking.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfect. See, in my office, you'd see a whole load of items that were all flight related.
Wow, that's super cool. Yeah, he's been a pilot. My uncle was a pilot. Unfortunately, passed away in a accident. Well, weather related, disappeared actually. But my brother's learning to fly formation. Where they
perfect.
Yeah. So
that's cool. That's
very cool. Okay, I know we're off tangent. So Davis Consulting, right?
DavisBusinessConsultants.com.
DavisBusinessConsultants.com, or with the new website, it will be.
That's going to be PaulWilliamDavis.com.
PaulWilliamDavis.com. Got it.
Yeah, and the podcast is the Executive Code, so anybody can find me through any one of those angles.
Yeah, Executive Code Podcast. Just subscribe to that, download it, listen to it on repeat. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're empathic. We've gone so far off on all these different ways. I'm like, let's reel this back in, because we've talked about this a lot. And I'm sure a lot of, the listeners are like, oh, I am doing my purpose. I'm an accountant. I got my CPA. It's like, what's Paul going to tell me that what I can do within my business? But I think there's a lot of correlation here about the types of clients you're working with, and really having that reason and purpose on who you're serving in order to shift from that passivist autopilot, just do a bunch of 1040 tax returns, to, stepping up, being a leader, maybe investing in a specialized knowledge area. I'm working with a group right now that does tax resolution work, and they want to do more of that. A lot of people are in trouble with the IRS in America. So, if you can get someone out of trouble and their wages aren't garnished or anything like that, then now you become more of that leader quadrant. Is there anything else that we didn't cover you want to share about your quadrant and the driving? I love it all. The driving analogy is so great. All your analogies are great.
Thank you. One of the things that we did say at the beginning that we would cover trust.
Oh, yeah, we need to cover trust. Trust with your clients.
Yeah. Do we have enough time to cover that right now at the minute?
Yeah, we have time for trust with your clients.
Okay, perfect. Well, we can be very, very quick. So trust for clients. Okay, there's 3 pillars. So please make note of this, because every single individual falls down to this one that I come across even in accountants or any level of professional services. There's 3 pillars to trust. There's credibility, there's rapport, and there's reliability. Now, credibility, typically most people can tick that box off from the point of view of they become qualified as an accountant. So therefore, when a client comes in the door, they know they've got a certificate above the desk saying they're an accountant. So they get the credibility from that side of things. But how you can build more credibility is the likes of social proof, meaning testimonials or client referrals, all that kind of side of things. So it's looking at what else can you do to build credibility. So that's your knowledge, your experience. It basically feeds into your competence side of things. They're all connected. The next one, most people, again, are some way on a high level of this particular pillar, which is rapport. Rapport is your ability to make that connection with another human being. Now, some people are really, really good at it. Other people are not so good at it. So you've got to be really honest with yourself and say, well, if on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do I actually build a really, really strong connection with people, and as quickly as possible, as immediately as possible, with a new client that comes in the door. So there's a lot of, again, different things that can be done in order to build rapport. But the last pillar, that's the one where they all fall down on. That's reliability. So different type of analogy, Michelle, but let me ask you, is there anything that you've lent to somebody and they didn't return it?
Lent and didn't return.
So was there a book or a tool or any item at all, like even an item of clothing that you lent to somebody borrowed it off you, but they still haven't returned it?
I'm not the best one to ask. I don't really lend out a whole bunch of stuff. And if I do, I keep close tabs on my items and I get it back. I don't let things just go away. They always come back. I'm like in Australia, they had the boomerangs. I'm like a boomerang. You throw it out and it comes right back.
Perfect. Now, most people, when I do workshops and I ask that question, every single hand will go up in the workshop.
Really?
Single hand. Yeah, every single hand. And the next question I'll ask is, well, can you remember the name of the individual, the exact item, and the time frame of when you actually lent that item to that individual? And every single one of them will say yes. Because what happens in the human brain is, if you think of it from a switch perspective, as soon as you give something to somebody and with an expected return, that switch goes on. When it comes to reliability, as soon as you make a promise or somebody's made a promise to you, that switch will go on in the brain. And if you haven't delivered on a promise, that switch is still on. So where this applies when it comes to accountants and dealing with clients is that you are inherently, as well as overtly, giving promises to your clients. And therefore, if you're not keeping track of all those individual promises that you're giving to your clients, and you're not closing those switches for them, what's on their mind, in the client's mind, is all those open switches. So therefore, the biggest pillar that people always need to build is reliability. So they have to build a system, both on one side to show and demonstrate that they are reliable, and second of all, that they also deliver on their promises. And it's one of the most critical pieces when it comes to accountants, because I see so many accountants that fail on it. And therefore, all of a sudden, what actually happens without the accountant realizing it is that the clients move away. Because what's happened is, from a scale, if you're thinking from this point of view, the trust level starts to deplete. So the more and more promises that aren't being delivered upon, that trust level goes down and down and down. And what happens before the accountant even knows it is, the client has moved on to another accountant.
Yeah. So what kind of systems have you seen be put in place? Because I like that. It's like every promise you make, it's an open switch. But how do you come full circle and close the switch?
Okay. So every single meeting or conversation that you have with a client, you've got to keep a written track of each one of those promises that you're giving to. So it can be as simple as, oh, there's a piece of document or there's a worksheet or a template that I can get to you. I'll send that over to you after the meeting. Now, what typically happens is somebody doesn't write that down, meaning the accountant doesn't write it down on a piece of paper. And they go from that meeting to another meeting, or they go back to the office, or they do something, or they get distracted. And then all of a sudden, they've forgotten. But the client has never forgotten. So one of the first pieces is that you have to keep a written record of all those promises that you're making to your clients. And those promises can be verbal or written, meaning it can be a sense of, I'll meet you, for example, at 9 o'clock next Monday morning in such and such place, and then you turn up and you're late. That's reliability.
Yeah.
You've now proven that you're late. So reliability kicks into every single area of your life, even down from the point of view of now how we build it is, so if you're promising to do something, meaning if you're promising to turn up for a meeting at 9 o'clock, you turn up at 9 o'clock, if not 5 minutes beforehand. If you're promising to give something, you make sure you deliver on that promise. A way of how you can demonstrate it to potential clients is that you build a reliability system, meaning, so think of it from the perspective of, if you produce a newsletter, the newsletter has to go out on that day every single month, no matter what. You do podcasts just as like I do podcasts, Michelle. That podcast, for me, my podcast lands every single Tuesday at 7 a.m.
Yeah, and mine's on the 1st and the 15th of every month, payroll date. So I am a real good person in the reliability department.
Exactly. So what you're doing is you're demonstrating to all your audience that you're reliable. Because it shows up in on their phone or whatever it is that they use to listen to the podcast. It's think of it from a human brain perspective. We may not consciously think about it. It's all on an unconscious level. Yeah. So the unconscious mind to the client's perspective is saying, oh, okay, no, this person actually delivers every single Tuesday or every whatever day it is, and whether it be their newsletter, their podcast, or whatever circulars that they send out, or whatever it is that they do. So you build reliability systems like that to prove that you're a very, very reliable individual, and that's what clients want to work with.
Wow, this is very important, especially for the accountants. I'm trying to think, depending on the CRM you use or your project management tool that you use in your firm, you should be able to start. I have no idea, but I'm almost thinking like a virtual notepad where, okay, I made a promise to Susie. I'm going to send her this by 5, so send it by 4. And every little bit will slowly add to the trust department.
Yeah, it does. For me, either during a meeting, while I'm taking notes when I'm having a client meeting, or at the end of that particular meeting, I put it in as a calendar event.
Yeah, I do the same. I put it in my notepad, actually. Like I have 5 promises that I have to close the switch on. That's so funny. I did it yesterday.
Yeah.
I am in the autopilot category on that.
Yeah. Another way of looking at it is, so, and this is typical of accountants. So again, I believe me, I trained as an accountant, so therefore I can say these things.
Yeah.
So it's not about slagging accountants in any shape or form. So one thing that where accountants fall down on, or a comment that you typically get back from clients, is that they told me that they would have, say, for example, the tax return or the piece of information or the report. They told me that they'd have it by, say, 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. And it's now the following Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. It's huge.
That's a promise.
Yeah, it's a promise. You just turned on a light switch.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to go close that light switch and do it before the buzzer goes off or your timer expires.
Exactly. So that one pillar, the reliability one. So credibility, most of us can take that one off. Rapport, but there's still more we can do from a credibility side. There's absolute more we can do from a rapport side of things. But the one that lets everybody down is reliability.
All right.
And especially in a busy environment.
For fun, what else can you do on the rapport side? Because I talk a lot about rapport in my 8-week sales mastery training.
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned So I spend a huge amount of money every single year on learning. It's one of my highest priorities. So people would have, and you probably came across this before, Michelle, as well. So there's a term called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, I want to go get certified in that. That's my project next year.
Okay, so I became one of those NLP business practitioners. So what NLP teaches you is the language systems and the body language system. So not only the visual, the auditory, but also your body language. So it tells you all those systems to use. And therefore, when you know and understand the systems, well, then you can build rapport an awful lot quicker. So that's as simple as the handshake, eye contact, how you demonstrate your body, meaning that what I mean by that is that do you come across as being cowardly or shy, or do you come across as being confident? Because the client does not want to deal with anybody that's not confident.
What would you suggest for people who do most of their business on the phone? So a lot of people aren't meeting anyone in person. And for those not on video, what do you recommend?
Same thing applies. If you don't come across as being confident on the phone, well, then your clients are going to pick that up. So in sales terminology, or if you ever do any sales training, one of the things that a sales trainer will always teach you, as part of NLP as well, is that before you even get on the phone call, is smile. I know that seems strange. Honestly, when I heard it, I said, there's no way I'm doing that. But that's what happens with the physiology, or physiology of the body itself. Before, literally the minute you get on that, before you get on that call, when you start smiling, meaning you force your face to smile, even though you may not feel like smiling, but you force your face to smile, the physiology in just doing that alone changes the chemical makeup of the body itself and the mind. And your clients actually pick that up. From an energetic perspective, they actually pick it up because they sense it in the energy coming across on the phone. It's a very simple thing that people can do.
It is very simple, and I don't even know where this came from or where I read it or what class I learned it from, but smile with a pencil in your mouth and practice.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard that one. That's a good one.
Okay, try it and send me an email. Let me know how that goes. But you can practice smiling with a pen in your mouth, and you'll probably sound like this when you talk. But
yeah, and make sure you take the pencil out before you get on the phone call.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much for all of your knowledge and your wisdom. And for everyone listening, make sure to go download the podcast, Executive Code, and start listening. Paul's a 777, so he's got an intuitive, empathic side, and I will be booking my appointments and my boyfriend's appointments. And it's an honor to have you here, and just giving all of our listeners and all the accountants listening a new way to go figure out how to break through the barrier, get past the passivist corner to get up into the leader corner, and really focus on purpose and passion and making your life less stressful. That's what it sounds like to me. Less overwhelming and less stressful.
Yeah, an effortless life.
Effortless life. Yes, I love that. Effortless. That's exactly what I was thinking. Paul, is there anything else you would like to share?
I think we've covered quite a lot, but no, I've really enjoyed our conversation, to be honest. And I'm any opportunity that I get to help people, it's what I do. It's what I love doing. So yeah, more than happy to share the information.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for joining Paul and I today on our part 2 of our little series. I think I'm going to ask him for a part 3 because, most of the podcast episodes are 20 to 30 minutes. His are going anywhere from like 40 to 45 minutes. He is a wealth of knowledge, and I had no idea he was an intuitive and empath and had these kind of what I call in America psychic capabilities. So if you are an accountant struggling on that hamster wheel, figuring out your purpose and passion, and maybe, really what clients would serve you best based on your internal drivers, check them out. Just go to the Executive Code podcast. It's now on my morning listening routine. He does an episode every single week, so he has consistent reliability. And think about maybe an area, I think a lot of us how can you build a reliability system? I never thought of that because I use my calendar and my notepad so religiously. But I think for those of us that are really busy, inundated with a lot of paperwork and tax returns, like I'm recording this podcast and it's a tax deadline for corporations in America. And I know a lot of you know this day, and you have so many tax returns to pump out by the time midnight hits. And you think, oh, I needed to send Susie an email, or I told her I would call them back. And every time that we make a promise, that light switches on. And how can you close the gap and close the circle by turning that light switch off? So what kind of system could you implement today in order to start closing your light switches to improve the reliability, which ultimately improves trust, which then the higher the trust, the more you can charge in the future. So think about a system that you could implement if there's anything that you can take away from today. And, I know a lot of accounting professional clients come to me because they are really just sick and tired of giving away your knowledge and expertise away for free. So if that sounds like you, I invite you to join my complimentary masterclass created just for accountants who want to build a practice with premium clients who eagerly pay you for what you're worth and appreciate the service that you delivered. You can sign up now at theabundantaccountant.com. And thank you all so much for joining us here on another amazing episode of the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Reminder that today's episode was brought to us by On the Clock. On the Clock is an online time clock software that provides small businesses with a solution to track employee hours worked while making the payroll process simple and efficient for accountants, and they've been around since 2004. On the Clock tracks time off, jobs, project hours, overtime, and payroll hours, which all can be sent over to QuickBooks, Gusto, Thomson Reuters, or you can map them over to any payroll provider of your choice. This gets rid of all those Excel files, emails, and faxes. Who needs to fax anymore? You will also have the option to be listed as a trusted pro on their marketplace page, giving you visibility to their 10,000 active customers, to you and your services. Sign up today for your free account over at ontheclock.com to expand your business and save time. Once again, ontheclock.com.